Did you know that 6% of all plane crashes are caused due to unfavorable atmospheric conditions? Yes, that is true because no matter how advanced human civilization has gotten, sometimes when nature strikes, there is no other option but to surrender and accept fate as it is. In this video, you'll see 10 of such catastrophic plane failures caused because of unfavorable weather conditions. This tragic plane crash claimed the lives of 126 people on board, including 115 passengers and 11 crew members, making it one of the most deadly aviation disasters in Cuban history. 24 individuals on the ground also lost their lives in the accident. But how did all of this happen? Cubana de Aviation Flight 9046, a chartered Ilyushin IL-62M airliner, crashed just minutes after leaving the Jose Marti International Airport on September 3, 1989, after encountering heavy rain and strong wind gusts during takeoff. As a response to the changing weather conditions, the crew decided it would be best to go faster and pulled back the flaps on the wings. But this made the wings lift less, and as the plane went up, it hit a downward gust of wind, causing it to crash at the end of the runway before completely collapsing into a neighborhood. Later on, investigators studying the incident remarked that the plane shouldn't have taken off because the weather was getting worse. But the pilot didn't realize how dangerous it was, and the consequences, as you can see, were deadly. Bad weather conditions and pilot errors often prove lethal, as in this case, and some others that we are looking into shortly. A Boeing 707-121 crashed near Elton, Maryland on December 8, 1963, after being struck by lightning while it was on its way from Baltimore to Philadelphia. All 81 people on the flight died. Investigation into the crash confirmed that a lightning-induced explosion in a fuel tank had destroyed the wing of the plane and had eventually led to its collapse. On February 19, 2003, an Ilyushin IL-76 aircraft crashed in mountainous terrain near Kerman, Iran. The aircraft was flying from Zahedan to Kerman when it went down 35 kilometers southeast of Kerman, killing 275 occupants, including 257 passengers and 18 crew members. Investigations were conducted to determine the root cause behind the troubling accident, which revealed that pilot error during descent in adverse weather conditions and harsh winds was responsible for the plane crash. Bad weather conditions also made it very difficult and risky to conduct recovery operations. The government did send helicopters, but soon enough, all of them returned empty-handed, as the rescue operation failed badly. The Iranian government extended condolences to the families of the victims. Fingers were also pointed at the US, which had imposed severe sanctions on Iran, which had negatively impacted its aircraft maintenance management. This flight was scheduled for domestic service from Fort Lauderdale to Los Angeles with a stopover at Dallas-Fort Worth International Airport, but met a tragic fate on August 2, 1985. The Lockheed L-1011 TriStar experienced a microburst while trying to land at DFW Airport, causing it to lose control and crash just over a mile from the runway. What happened next will give you goosebumps. The plane first hit a car. It collided with 2 water tanks, and then finally it broke apart and disintegrated completely, resulting in the deaths of 137 people, including one on the ground. The National Transportation Safety Board, NTSB, investigated the accident and found several contributing factors. Like in many of the previous accidents, pilot error was seen as a significant factor, as the flight crew decided to fly through a thunderstorm without the proper procedures or training to avoid or escape microbursts. Additionally, the lack of adequate wind shear detection systems on both the aircraft and at the airport also added to the risk factor, but this was also not taken into proper consideration. However, the good news is that after the accident, efforts were made to ensure significant improvements in aviation safety so that such accidents would not repeat. NASA researchers developed an onboard Doppler weather radar system to detect wind shear, which was then mandated for installation on commercial airliners by the Federal Aviation Administration. Not only this, the importance of timely emergency response coordination was also stressed, which would make future disaster response efforts more effective and well communicated. As the crew of Northwest Airlines Flight 299 was preparing to depart for Memphis, a thick blanket of fog enveloped the airport. Highlighting the gravity of the situation, one crew member remarked, "Man, I've never seen fog this bad." Meanwhile, in the control tower, air traffic controllers were finding it challenging to manage flights because of the dense fog. But despite these circumstances, the ground controller cleared Flight 299 to taxi towards runway 3 center, guiding it along a sequence of taxiways named Oscar, Foxtrot, and X-Ray. With clearance granted, the aircraft was mere moments away from lifting off into the mist. However, little did they know, there was a lot of danger that lurked ahead. A DC-9 aircraft remained stationary halfway down the runway, but the haze made it difficult for the pilots to see it, and in no time, Flight 299 collided with the stationary DC-9. Amidst the chaos, firefighters and emergency response teams sprang into action, rushing to the scene. Tragically, 8 passengers lost their lives in a collision, marking it as one of the deadliest incidents of its kind on U.S. soil in nearly 2 decades. On July 3, 1963, around 9:09 a.m. NZST, a flight operated by a Douglas DC-3 Skyliner collided with a vertical rock face in the Kaimai Ranges near Mount Ngata Mahinarua at an altitude of 2,460 feet, instantly claiming the lives of the 23 people on board. Later investigations carried out by the Civil Aviation Authority found that a downdraft pushed the aircraft below the crest level of the mountain range, where it encountered severe turbulence. Extremely poor weather conditions made the situation even worse until recovery became completely impossible. But what makes this event even more crazy is the fact that the crash site was so remote that the remains were not recovered till 1964. Then in June 2023, the engine and one rear tire were retrieved, and in July 2023, the recovered wreckage was put on display at the Classic Flyers Museum near Tauranga Airport to mark the 60th anniversary of the tragedy. On August 31, 1940, Pennsylvania Central Airlines Trip 19, a newly commissioned Douglas DC-3A aircraft, was flying from Washington, D.C. to Detroit with a scheduled stopover in Pittsburgh. While approaching the West Virginia border, the aircraft encountered a severe thunderstorm near Lovettsville, Virginia. Witnesses reported seeing a significant lightning flash shortly before the plane crashed into an alfalfa field. Initially, it was suspected that the crash was caused by wind shear, but the Civil Aeronautics Board later confirmed that a lightning strike was the most probable cause. This tragic incident resulted in the loss of all 21 passengers and 4 crew members, including U.S. Senator Ernest Lundeen. There were 3 other federal officials on the plane as well, a special agent and an FBI employee, and a prosecutor from the Criminal Division of the U.S. Department of Justice. On April 4, 1977, Southern Airways Flight 242 encountered severe thunderstorms shortly after takeoff on its way to Atlanta. Despite having onboard weather radar, the pilots miscalculated the intensity of the storms and flew into a squall line. As a result of hail damage, both of the plane's engines failed, leading to the loss of both engines. Although the crew attempted an emergency landing, it was unsuccessful and the plane crashed. On 31 January 1971, a plane was set to transport 12 metric tons of fresh seafood from Tumen to Surgut, but as the aircraft descended towards Surgut Airport, it encountered severe icing conditions. Despite attempts to manage the icing, the aircraft stalled during the final approach, leading to a crash 16.5 kilometers north of Surgut Airport. The investigation concluded that the incomplete opening of the air bleed valves from the engine, combined with extreme icing conditions, led to the formation of ice on the wings and eventually resulted in a disaster that took the lives of all 7 crew members on board. This domestic passenger flight from Porto Alegre to Sao Paulo, Brazil, ended tragically on the evening of July 17, 2007. The Airbus A320-233 overshot runway 35L at Sao Paulo Congonhas Airport during an ongoing moderate rain and crashed and exploded into a nearby TAM Express warehouse, claiming the lives of all 187 passengers and crew on board, as well as 12 individuals on the ground, with an additional 27 warehouse workers sustaining injuries. After the incident, Brazil's Aeronautical Accidents Investigation and Prevention Center, CENIPA, found that mistakes by the pilots during landing caused the accident, but other factors including the runway's recent resurfacing, lack of grooves to channel water, and bad weather conditions added fuel to the fire and made the event much more deadly than what it might have been without these contributors. Oh, and as crazy as this is, one of the plane's engines didn't have its thrust reverser working, which made it harder to brake. Makes me wonder who even was responsible for maintaining these planes. Anyways, shortly after the crash, Congonhas Airport was closed for improvements to the runway, and the flight operations were reorganized in order to make sure that no such accidents were repeated. So, did you just unlock a new fear about flying, or were you already scared of it? I am no longer sure if I'll be excited or nervous as hell for my next flight. What about you?